My name is Caroline Williams, and I will be presenting a new business strategy for Perfect Choice Taxi. Let's take a look. Okay, so in 2012, married couple Melanie and Harold Busby started one of the only taxi companies in Cullman, Alabama. At the time, there was one other operating taxi company nearby, but they have since gone out of business, which left Perfect Choice Taxi to deal with the ever-increasing influx of people needing rides. Because of recent circumstances, the need for a new strategy has arisen. In this presentation, I will cover the following topics: scheduling, safety, and communication, as well as recommendations on how to improve upon each of these. First, let's take a look at how things are going at PCT. As it stands, there are two office managers, one being one of the owners, and the other which doubles as the dispatcher. A dispatcher is in charge of sending drivers out, scheduling runs, knowing the status of each driver, and communicating with the customers, but more on that later. One of the most important parts of a taxi company are the drivers. Right now, PCT has 3. Some of the problems that the company has run into lately are the number of employees they have, including drivers, compared to the demands of the community. Because of the increase in population, customers are experiencing longer wait times, and employees are experiencing longer, more stressful workdays. This chart shows evidence of the recent population increase in Cullman, Alabama. However, not only does PCT provide their services to the people of Cullman, but they also provide transportation to the people in the surrounding areas such as Hanceville and Vinemont. Therefore, the pressure is on for the employees of Perfect Choice Taxi. Here are a few ways to improve where scheduling is earned. Though people are welcome to call in and request a taxi at any time, a lot of PCT's business comes from scheduled runs throughout the week. It is recommended that any known runs should be divided and/or rotated fairly among the drivers. For instance, if there is a reoccurring scheduled run that happens at 8 a.m. throughout the week, it should not be the sole responsibility of one driver every time. This can cause a lot of stress on the driver and a potential bad experience for the customer. It is not uncommon for PCT to provide their services for people going to and from the nearest airports or hospitals in the Birmingham and Huntsville areas of Alabama. These types of runs can often take up most part of a driver's day, leaving them feeling tired and stressed from the amount of continuous driving required for these runs. Recommendations also include an even division of these long runs among the drivers, which will allow the drivers to not only know what their work responsibilities will be, but it will also permit the avoidance of any one driver from having to make all of the long-haul runs. Call-in and after-hour runs can be both common and uncommon during any given work week at PCT. These can include both short and long runs. Recommendations include providing the drivers with a rotating schedule. This will help alleviate the reoccurring problem of having one driver committed to all of the after-hour runs or any one driver from taking only the call-in runs, which generally are shorter runs. Next, we get into the matter of safety. Did you know that taxi drivers are over 20 times more likely to be murdered on the job than any other workers? This chart shows the crime rates in Cullman over the past few years. As you can see, Cullman is able to boast a modest amount of crime in its community. However, this fact does not prevent the need for the drivers of Perfect Choice Taxi to be prepared for any situation that may arise, as they do travel to other areas of Alabama that are more susceptible to crime. According to an article found on OSHA.gov, by recognizing the hazards that lead to violent incidents and using proven prevention and control measures, employers and drivers can create safer working conditions. Here are some physical controls that the article recommends. Barriers such as bullet-resistant glass between drivers and passengers prevent robberies, injuries, and death. Security cameras record activities within the vehicle, discouraging violent behavior and aiding in identifying passengers if an assault does occur. Silent alarms, such as external light and/or radio communication, allow drivers to safely request help. Vehicle tracking devices, such as global positioning satellite systems, allow drivers in distress to be located. Improved lighting inside the taxi allows the drivers to be aware of passenger behaviors. And here are procedural controls that the article recommends. Establishing police protocols, including authorizing police stops, promoting the use of credit card payments to limit the amount of cash in the taxi and thereby discouraging robberies, providing safety training to teach drivers, dispatchers, and company owners about protective measures. Not only will these safety measures help prepare the employees for any unforeseen dangers in jobs, but they will also help ensure a safe work environment for any future drivers of Perfect Choice Taxi. Alright, so one of the final parts of this new business strategy discusses the point of improving communication in the workplace. As individuals, people often find it necessary to communicate with one another on a day-to-day basis. Communication is perhaps one of the most important aspects of running a company, especially a taxi company. Not only is it important between the drivers and their customers, but also the dispatcher as well as the supervisors. Improving on communication between coworkers can be a simple task if the people involved have the correct tools to do so. Here are a few suggestions from Forbes magazine to help the communication process along. Martin Zwilling says, generate trust rather than distrust. Effective communication requires trust in you, your message, and your delivery. We tend to trust people that we think are like us, or we have social proof that others trust, or feel reciprocal trust from the sender. People who are optimistic, confident, and demonstrate competence generate trust. Aim to simplify rather than inject complexity. Simplicity leads to focus, which produces clarity of purpose. People distrust what they don't understand, what they believe is doublespeak, or things made unnecessarily complex. Influencing people to change their mind or action requires building an intuitive, simple path to your answer. Zwilling also says, consider the listener perspective rather than the presenter. Listeners tend to average all the pieces of information they hear and walk away with a single impression. More is not always better, so reduce the length of presentations and speak. Perceptions are more important than reality. Avoid the over-helpfulness syndrome. Tend toward specifics rather than generalizations. Many executive speeches miss the mark because they aim for the general constituency and hit no one. People need to know how a message relates to them personally, not just what has to be done and why. Your challenge is to make the future seem attainable and applicable to each listener. Speak of the future. Let's take a quick look back in order to see the improvements that Perfect Choice Taxi has to look forward to. First, we discussed ways to improve the scheduling. Weekly, long, call-in, and after-hours scheduling plans were made. Next, suggestions were made on how to ensure the safety of employees. And finally, there were recommendations from a business professional on ways to improve communication in the work environment. With these tools, Perfect Choice Taxi can look forward